Hello, and welcome to Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We want to keep shining a light on rugby that is not shown in the mainstream media. I'm Carl, and thanks for joining us on the next instalment of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. Don't forget to keep subscribing on the pod, and keep in touch with us on the social media platforms. It allows us to open the door to other guests and just interact with you guys and make sure that what we're actually doing as part of this is actually moving forward and getting engagement within the game. As I mentioned, we're on the road. Not all of these pods are going to be in depth from the start, so we're going to go straight into these interviews. This week doesn't really need much of an introduction. We got the legend that is Warren Abrahams, currently working for Brazil Sevens. I know that's coming to an end at the end of the Olympics, so Warren is out on the look. We actually had to edit and cut this interview short a little bit because he was running off to work with Carl Sinclair before Carl's gone off to France. So more than willing to have obviously let Warren jump off and get on with such a legend that is Sinks. Sinks, if you want to jump on, tell us about that. More than welcome anytime, mate. As I said, not really much of an intro needed for Warren. He's just a legend. So let's get on with it. Well, this week we've managed to get Warren Abrahams on. Rusty from a few weeks ago told me to reach out. He said he'd been out for a walk with Warren that morning, so said Warren would probably be interested. Another mate that we've sort of got in contact through Sanir over in Qatar said you'd be a really worthwhile guest getting on. So Warren, for those that are not as enlightened about your rugby journey, love to for that to be shared and let everyone understand where you've been, what you've done, and where you're at now.
Carl, firstly, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure having some coaching conversations and sharing a space where you can share for your ideas, So thank you very much for that. Rugby, I'll give you a snapshot of the rugby journey so far. As you can probably tell, I'm originally from South Africa, so born and raised in Cape Town. And there, obviously, being from South Africa, you're born with a rugby ball over there, so you're straight into the game.
Yeah.
So that's where I pick up the game, And I'm blessed and grateful for the opportunities the game has given me so far. I played all through the schoolboy ranks back in South Africa.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to Stellenbosch University. So by interesting story with that, I don't come from a very well-off family. So after school, I had to take a year out and sort of put all my eggs in one basket with the rugby thing. And look, I had one opportunity, and that was to try and play my heart out to get a scholarship, And luckily, it worked out for me with Stellenbosch University, which is obviously a very prestigious rugby university in itself. And then from there, went back to my local club where we Durbanville Belleville, the home club, played some of my under-20s stuff there. Played for their first team, so they play like equivalent to what we know as the championship over here. That level of rugby. And then took a gamble at 22, 23, took a gamble, had a little bit of savings. I was lucky to start coaching back then as well. Had a little bit of savings, and then gambled and came to England. Had nothing sorted, nothing planned, took a risk, sent my CV out to many clubs as you do back then.
Yeah.
And then, found myself over here with no plan. And it was about being flexible and adapting. Managed to get a job with some random company selling broadband. At the time, I had no clue what broadband was.
I don't think many people still do now, Warren, to be honest. But
so I lasted about 24 hours in that job, and then a great man, Paul Laidler in Windsor, he took me in, and then from there it's you got to let the rugby do the talking, and then word of mouth, and you pick up little bits, and people get interested in what you've got to offer, and that's sort of how I knew that was my chance. I had nothing to lose, I knew that was my chance. So I had to build something, and luckily, with all that hard work and persistence and living through the ups and downs at that time, um, I went via London Irish in their community department to Harlequins. Spent 8 years in Harlequins
Nice.
within the academy, 5 years with England's sevens. I had 2 years coaching Lithuania on the European circuit. Bear in mind, I never even know that country existed when I got the phone call. And then I did some consulting with Germany briefly. Took up the USA job for the cancelled Olympics. From there, took on the Wales job. Currently, I'm supporting Brazil in this Olympic cycle, which will finish next month. Really, so yeah, that's a snapshot of the rugby journey there.
That's incredible. What's obviously South Africa is pretty much like a bigger version of Wales, isn't it? Really, with the way that their passion for rugby. What was there a bit of a culture shock coming to the home of rugby and it not being as big as sort of where it was back home?
Uh Probably not a culture shock as much
No.
as I'm reflecting and thinking back. I was just a rookie. Like I said, I had nothing to lose. I had
Yeah.
I had so much ambition, and I still got it. And
Yeah. Brilliant.
you probably didn't soak. I didn't soak up everything and anything at the time.
Yeah.
I probably it's probably more the cultural differences that was the big thing. Obviously, with football being the number one over here, rugby just sort of being secondary. Rugby being played in perhaps not everywhere. When you
Yeah.
talk about Africa, you put a rugby ball down, everyone's playing the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was completely different. The biggest shock was probably the weather. I was freezing my backside off in September, and everyone was saying, wait till we get later." Um, and then, but it's the rugby community.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone when I had one friend who went to school with me that was over here. Apart from
Yeah.
that, it was I had many days where I sort of gone, geez, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Yeah, shall I just go back home where everyone knows me and where people inflate your ego a little bit.
Yeah.
So you had many of those days. So so it wasn't a big shock. I knew I was quite clear on what I wanted to achieve, and like I say, I almost had nothing to go back home apart from my family. So I had to go with that gamble I took.
Yeah. What a journey. So a lot of your sort of coaching expertise has been around the sort of the seven circuit. Is that fair to say? Apart from obviously Quins and stuff, now you sort of seem to be dragged into a lot of the seven circuit. Is that your preference, or is it just they make a call and they put the check on the table and you go where it goes?
Mate, you know how we are in a rugby world. We like to label everything.
Yeah.
Uh, I always say coaches that sort of my age that sort of come through my journey. Sevens wasn't a pathway. There's no real sevens pathway for you to go right. I'm going to specialize in sevens.
Okay.
You had to be a 15s coach. You have
Yeah.
to start there. You got to learn. You got to that's where the foundations is built, and I'm still at heart a 15s coach. But then if you, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere, if you progress into the sevens and you start doing well, you then obviously get labeled as a sevens coach. You were seven,
Yeah.
you were seven specialist. But look, for me, I always look the time when I coached Harlequins and England sevens for 5 years at the same time.
Yeah.
And I love that. Although my brain was rattling on a daily basis, you're working with the best sevens players in the world at the time. That's
Yeah.
making you better at coaching. Then you go over to Harlequins. Then you're obviously in that 15 space. You
Yeah.
some of the best young players, and you look at the English squad that's just been announced, the number of those boys who's representing England on this summer tour, for instance. So you still had to coach equally as well as you possibly can, but it's just the conversations that's slightly different. The tactics is obviously a little bit different, but I used it as one was always making me better. So sevens was making me better at finding the smaller things. 15s was making me better at looking at the big tactical systems pictures, and you try and transfer the thing to, but ultimately you're coaching people and you got to be ridiculously good at unlocking the best out of the people. So have I got a preference? I probably having more fun on the seventh circuit, because the game is a little bit more exciting. The game is you in that pressure cooker, not week to week, but moment to moment, which I absolutely love. Your brain is going nuts. You know, you're preparing against one country, and then within an hour and a half, you got to prepare against another country.
You see the instant results, Warren, as well, don't you? It's not like you've got to wait a week or 2 weeks if there's a game, like a gap. Like, you've literally got an hour and a half to turn your shit round. If you screwed out the last game, you've got to literally be on your feet and all over it. So that's a true sign. So Rusty was here on the other week as well, and he sort of asked him the question. He said about sevens players should more players play sevens, and coaches also, to go and adapt their ability, a bit of self-development. Do you agree with that, or do you think actually that it's beneficial, or some players are not that way inclined? I know that some people aren't and some people are, but do you think it will make most players better, and coaches?
Yeah, I'm a big, and probably this is me and Rusty. Our bias is probably a little bit more towards the sevens, because obviously we've learned some pretty cool lessons that made both of us better coaches. But yeah, it all, we've had this conversation many times. I believe if you play there, you look at someone like Gabriel Aubrey, who's just been selected. He was in there briefly in the sevens. He's a hooker. You look at his skill set. You look at Will Meir, you look at Rory McConaughey, you look at the guys who's now coming back. Anton Dupont just got Rookie of the Year. Won the Champions Cup the week before. Instantly, France he played 3 tournaments. France has won 2 of them and got a bronze medal. So and even Hugo Keenan jumping in as well. And then it's all about, I think you got to get the model right. If your model is about producing top end, like South Africa's model is about producing Springboks, and you can see the likes of Cheslin Colby, Kwagga Smith, all these guys coming through the sevens ranks, and then you can see their skill set and their playing ability at that level. So same with the Aussies, same with the Kiwis. It's about building that model. I reckon if you probably the best example is I took this group of 18-year-old boys. I took them to the Youth Commonwealth Games. All in academies, mainly in academies. And I took them to the Youth Commonwealth Games, and we won silver. And I remember thinking, geez, imagine you've got these group of young players, all of them, probably 90% of that squad is still playing in a premiership. And then Ollie Slycom just won the premiership at the weekend. He was in that
He didn't do too bad at the weekend, did he? Or he ain't done too bad all season, to be fair.
Yeah. So imagine you've got your top end young players. Obviously position specific. You look at the hookers, back rowers, even some of the second rowers. And then obviously your outside backs. Imagine they developing with a clear plan within that sevens framework from week to week. And that's just the tactical part. The hardest part of sevens is the mental skills, the capacity to go from one to the next, knowing that your body is absolutely dead. Going from moment to moment, but not just in competition. Monday to Friday is incredibly hard in the seven.
Yeah.
So imagine the level of resilience you can build in this young people. So answer your question, man. I think it's an awesome tool for to develop these young players, young coaches. Throw him in there in the deep end. I was lucky enough to work with Simon Amo, who absolutely growed me
Yeah.
in that environment. But I'm grateful because it transformed the way I coach.
Yeah. So is that sort of blocked by the Premiership clubs, or is it just because it's not in the norm? As me and Rusty also was discussing, if it's in the norm, that seems to be what how we toe a line in rugby. But is it because that's slightly left field that's not in the current framework for most sort of academy systems to say, actually, sod it, we're going to send these players off for 2 months on that circuit to improve this, this, and this. Or is it just not in the circuit, so they're just not interested because they're
No,
15s players?
yeah, I think our biggest problem is none of the home unions have a sevens program.
Do you reckon that's because of the weather? Do you reckon
That's
if we just we're not interested because the
I know,
weather's so shit?
that's just funding. That's just the world we are. That's why we had to go to Team GB.
Yeah,
I think that's probably our biggest issue. So we definitely lost something there, and then strip that further back. Obviously, the clubs are independently owned, so their
yeah,
agendas is completely different. It's about producing first team players because that's where their revenue and success lay. So again, it's probably a political conversation far bigger than me and you
yeah,
over here. But I still believe deep down in my heart, if we've got an exceptional young player and we want to accelerate his development, you can just see like how quickly guys get drafted into um, into the All Black team, for instance. Sevens, and then bam, they get him ready there. All of a sudden, he's an All Black.
What if the Prem teams sort of created a Prem Sevens tournament and then used that as part of it and made that? So obviously, World Rugby are looking at trying to use the Seven Circuit as a way to rebrand and save rugby. Obviously, the short form content is massive within society. What if the Prem teams come up with the seven side with the academy lads or whatever? One of the lads that's coming back from injury dots in. They have a Friday night gathering of X amount of games, get it done, a bit like a T20 format. I think they used to do that as well, didn't they, for some bits? But do you think that could work? And then obviously that would still appease the privately owned businesses, but also help development of the game to the masses as well.
Yeah, no, we trial that, and I can 100% say being involved in that. That's probably the most fun some of those young players had. I remember taking a young Harlequin squad to Melrose Sevens,
Yeah, yeah,
and we won that Melrose competition. And you just look at the names on there; these guys was 18, 19, 20, unbelievable, unbelievable. Now really successful players in the Premiership, and then we've obviously had the Premiership competition, and one of the lessons there was probably it's where it sat. I remember having to prepare a team, and I got told by our director of rugby at the time, you can't train with them. You won't have them. They'll just turn up. They'll just have to turn up on the day, and you can only have these five guys. And I'm going, okay, so I've got this small group of players. So, and I went, can I make my own team then? So this group of players, and then I took my England Sevens Academy boys, and I
yeah.
matched them together, and I coached them. I coached them via WhatsApp. Like key strategic things, and then bam, off we went, and we go play in this competition. And then I remember the commentators questioning me on how much preparation and training. I was like, no, this is WhatsApp. This is like how these guys learn now. They instant information there. So just evolve with the world there. But
How does that work? How does that work then, Warren, on WhatsApp? Are you like doing the setups in the garden? Have you got like loads of little bits and like running around trying to record yourself to send what you want done, or how
I
does?
know, mate. It's just you know I've just had this last week out in Amsterdam. It's just we've got so much access to so much knowledge. You
Yeah,
take some of those World Series games, you clip them up for the guys, and you use Keynote, and you put some of the kickoff systems, the principles you want to play, and you
yeah,
give them some cool examples. It might be a voiceover, it might be just a video example, and they see that, these Gen Z,
yeah.
the alphas, they see that information, bam, they process it real
That's
quick,
it. They're off.
and
Yeah,
it's just about priming. You do all the stuff beforehand. Hopefully it lands, but when you have the conversations, there's a greater understanding, and then they fly. All these young people, they've got their access to their phone 24/7. So
yeah.
as coaches, we might as well use it.
No, that's fair play. So obviously you're part of the Brazil setup at the minute. Is the passion and the hunger over there for rugby as big as it is in the rest of the world in other places, or is it still sort of grassroots? Because I managed to see Brazil play Canada over in Spain, so I managed to see them down at La Villa, and their 15s look phenomenal for maybe the first 60 minutes, and then sort of the gas tank emptied quite quickly. But you could see that they've got some serious development coming through and some really good set up on the 15s level. Is that become a countrywide thing, or is that still sort of very entry level over there in Brazil?
No, I've been with them now for probably sort of 4 years.
Yeah,
The end of the last Olympics, and then leading up into this one.
yeah,
And yeah, the growth has been exceptional. The growth, even especially around the women's game over there,
yeah.
it's been fascinating.
Wow.
And the number of players they're producing, they've got some really cool KPIs and plans in place around how they drive development. They've got. I've just been out there a few weeks ago, and they've got one pitch. It's not quite a 4G. It used to be a 4G, but a
Yeah,
little different now because of the number of teams.
yeah,
It's academy teams, it's the national teams, it's the 18s, it's the 20s, it's the women, it's the Cobras who play in the South Americas. So they've got big numbers. So the development has grown a lot over there, but obviously it's a country dominated by football,
yeah.
and it's a country so big. I don't even think they can reach some of the potential they've got. But
So
they,
no, they're not got teams playing alongside the Amazon just yet. Then it's not.
I don't think they have. But you like a couple of the girls is not far from there.
Really.
Talita Costa, or Talia Costa and Talita, they're twins, and there's absolute freaks, athletic
Yeah,
freaks. You saw the tries he scored on the World Series. They from near there, So these girls come far all over the country. But in terms of answering your question, yeah, the growth has been unreal, and obviously they've got the woman who plays in the World Cup qualifier. The men's sevens is going to the repechage for the Olympic. You've got
yeah,
the women's sevens who's just qualified for to retain our position on the World Series, and then obviously going to the Olympic. Then you've got the 15s men's who plays in that Super Rugby South America Super Rugby campaign.
yeah,
So there's loads going on there, So
yeah.
they're on
Wow.
the right track. So there's a decent buzz going on at the moment.
Have they got much of a sort of a club rugby system? Have they got like a Prem division, or because I was speaking to a bloke from Argentina the other day, and he said that obviously they've got they've got a few teams and sort of a few pro teams, but they've got quite an established sort of amateur level underneath semi-pro piece. But then there's like similar to the Europe Super Cup, they've got teams from different parts of South America that play at their top elite level for the 15s. Is I don't think he mentioned that Brazil was part of it. Have they got that sort of set up there? Have they got one super team that they dragged together from any clubs that are around in Brazil, or is it not quite there yet?
Yeah, so that's the Cobras. So
Wow. Okay.
they play in that league with Uruguay and America. It's almost like the second division of the MRL.
Yeah.
So they play in that league.
Okay.
So yeah, so quite, and most of those guys would then make up the national men's 15s team, and then
Right.
the women's league is more like a sevens league, just purely based on where they are with numbers, I suppose.
Growth and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm guessing they've got big plans. Are they going to be sort of playing in Rio and taking over the Macarena, their main stadium?
I'm not sure they're at that level yet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're at that level, but it's that country is so big. There's so the
Yeah.
potential they have there for growth and further development is quite massive, and they get. I've never been to a fixture within Brazil, so I'd like to experience that just to see
Yeah.
what type of uh, what their version of the rugby community look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I go, it's more like performance. You go in, get the work done, and
Get
and,
out.
and sort of try and experience a little bit of the country. But yes, quite a different sort of experience when I do go to get hands on.
Nice. So you say have you got a recurring contract to the plan to stay with Brazil, or is that sort of up for renewal soon? Or
Yeah, so I go to it's the Olympics coming up. That's sort of the last one for this campaign.
yeah,
And then it's the head coach Will Broderick's a young fellow reached out to me about 4 years ago, who I've been sort of helping and mentoring and guiding and assisting. He's actually stepping down. So he's finishing up after the Olympics, and then I'm still working out whether I'm staying on, or have I done enough that I
yeah,
possibly can do. They've asked various questions around potentially taking over stuff, but look, that's conversation with my boss over here,
yeah.
and and then we'll have a look and see if she agrees with any of those stuff. you know.
Do you, so have they sort of tried to put somebody alongside you to try and help develop the coaching level as well, or have they kind of left you to it to bring you in and you do that, or do you work with just the players, or do you sort of help try and develop the coaching standard out there as well?
Yeah, so I work closely with Will, who's been the head coach. So
Right.
he's a young English fellow, speaks fluently Portuguese, but he was
Oh wow.
new to the game at that level, and the
Yeah.
pressures and that type of stuff. And then every time I'm there, I'm in camp. It's trying to not just the stuff in between the lines, but also sort of to be like part of the strategic planning and preparation in terms of where we're pushing the game, where we're pushing coaches, and try
Yeah.
and mentor and guide and facilitate. So I support on every part of building a high performance environment. If that answers your question.
It's because sometimes some places they sort of that's it. You come in, you do that bit, and then you're sort of out the door. But by the
Yeah,
sounds of it, they're lapping everything up from
yeah, it's
what
100.
you can tell them. So
Yeah, and it's trying to um, make it more of a sort of a connected environment. So at the start, it was probably very like silo, like
yeah,
SC works over there, mindset, mental skills over there, nutrition and rugby sits over here. So you're connecting everyone together, and we go, all right, how do we make these people better? Yeah, in front of us. Where we are now, probably more of a sync vehicle, trying to do everything possible to maximize human performance, from the head.
yeah. No, it sounds really impressive. Obviously, we've mentioned it a couple of times, but do you think rugby as a whole moves too slowly to be agile enough in the current society? From what you found,
That's a great question. For me, I always say, it's never the game; it's always the people within the game. That's that's always.
yeah. But unfortunately, those people are at the top that make those decisions at the time, aren't they? That's the hard bit. Is they get
That's,
you tarnish. It's a big tarnished brush, Warren.
yeah,
Here we.
yeah, 100%. So for me, it's like, look, if we've got the right people in place, the game is going to move pretty fast. I think sometimes like rugby sometimes very stuck in its ways, it's like a lot of old thinking. We love the old thinking. It's like if you've been involved in playing in the premiership, you automatically become a commentator and a pundit, and it's like everything is like same.
Yeah,
We don't quite. I don't think we're quite at a place where we can just diversify things, real quick. But then on the flip side as well, you look at the work Rob Vickerman and his guys are doing within the sevens. You look at how quickly the Premiership finals sold out. You look at how quickly the Champions Cup sold out the other day.
yeah,
So we're there. We just we're not very good at perhaps we're good at criticizing every little inch and everything we do within the game.
yeah,
No, but we're not celebrating these people well enough. I think there's definitely a way to. Um, uh, when I grew up, Chester Williams was my hero
yeah,
because he was the only guy that looked like me. So I'm gonna naturally
yeah,
gravitate to him. But imagine we can now create more stories. We can create more role models. I
yeah,
don't think we quite have those type of role models, or like superheroes in our game. I think Anton de Pond is probably the one, but everyone talks about him, because it's so he's been turned into a superhero. But imagine we do this more and more with some of our other players, both in the male and the female game.
yeah,
I think we can use today's technology and advances to make the game more attractive. We got to
yeah,
bring to the game. There's too many stuff around. The game isn't safe, so everyone's talking about that part. So that
yeah,
if that adversity then get pushed up quite high into the media and into people's heads. But what about the other cool bits that's going on? The
yeah,
variance is in town next week. I guarantee you, there's not a lot of people probably who knows that.
yeah,
So there's so much room and opportunity for us to just think a little bit differently, about the game, and turn these guys into superheroes, but make them more accessible. You watch
yeah,
Mapimpi walks into the supermarket in South Africa the other day, and people go nuts, and it's singing, and
yeah.
you don't. I don't feel we have access to our superstars really. That'd be my view, and bear in mind, I'm probably closer than most people to some of these players and coaches.
Yes, because like America do it right, don't they? So you kind of become the brand, but the NFL sort of own the brand and own certain player rights and image rights, and I think they managed to do that very well. Um, Obviously, the way it's because Marrow signed for
I say,
Was it Rock Nation? Yeah.
yeah,
So I think a lot of people sort of thought actually he might be able to sort of step out into the limelight a little bit more and become that superhero, that sort of icon around the world. But I don't know. Do you think the rugby fraternity have kind of tried to pull him, ground him, trying to make it not like him to stand out? Because a lot, it's a typical way within rugby. if you stand out and you're different, you're not always accepted. So sometimes it's easier for your brand to be protected.
Yeah,
Like Joe Marler's Joe Marler. Some people love him, some people hate him. But he's got his brand. Same with Haskell. Same with other lads. Obviously, Carl Sinclair, as you said, you know pretty well. He's if you get onto Instagram, you see that, but that is again within the rugby community. You can kind of find those people within it. You don't see them outside the rug because on Netflix, obviously, we had the Six Nations documentary, which I thought was brilliant, really, really good. But I wonder how many of those were people that didn't understand rugby that actually watched it. The viewing figures were probably substanced by rugby fans. It's the same with the Rising Sun. If you push that out and marketed that in a different way, it could potentially open the door to a lot more people. But I think, as a sport, we're really shit at marketing, which I don't think helps anyone and to move the game forward.
yeah.
But do you think somebody's got to go and sit down with the NFL or something like that from World Rugby or whoever just to understand how to market something like this?
Yeah, I guarantee these conversations are happening.
Oh, okay.
Whether I can't see them not happening. That's sort of my view. So it's for us to then work out how we tell that story differently would be my view. Um, and if we can bring that to people's attention in the way this current climate is evolving, I think we can bring these people. We can bring them and market them in a complete different way. You know, all these guys, for instance, they have access to to social media.
Yeah,
I think the challenge here is as soon as these guys post anything the scrutiny they get. So sometimes is what we do in rugby is we belong to exist because we got to feed into the narrative. It's like you say, I've been there myself.
yeah,
If you don't fit in, you get labeled as difficult to work with,
yeah,
always having a different opinion, just
yeah,
purely because we're not comfortable in sometimes seeing the world completely from a different lens.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Do you think people are not as willing to sort of look at themselves as well? Self development's quite a closed piece with a lot of people. They're not very self aware. And do you think we've probably gathered that whole group of people that aren't self aware that and actually watch rugby? There's probably a lot of people that are in their own little bubble but aren't self aware on certain things. Do you think that's where we're at, or is that just society and we're the odd ones out?
Uh, that's yeah, that's a a good way of sort of thinking about it. Yeah, it's an it's an interesting one. You know, it's there's some really good people in our game. That's got their hearts in the right places, you know, and wants to do the best possible thing for the game. And then there's also some not so good people in our game that's out for their own individual agendas.
Yeah,
So I suppose it's my view is always you've got to if you want to make people better, it has to start with yourself
yeah,
from a coaching perspective. So you got to look at ways to get yourself better.
yeah,
Even if your coach is so important, you got to look at like what is those spiritual things, what is the mental, physical things, and then your tactical and technical stuff should be right at the bottom of your needs of if you think about Maslow's needs of hierarchy, you
yeah,
know, it should be right at the bottom of the pile, and you gotta work out. You gotta feed yourself first. You start
yeah,
feeding yourself, and find all those key ingredients. They're gonna help you make the people that you need to coach better. So that's always my view. It starts with us as individuals. So whoever's there at the top of the table having these conversations, it's we gotta perhaps, because everything is driven by financial incentives. We gotta maybe just drive everything towards the product. If we look at Saturday, there was 30 people on the grass selling a product. Plus then you bring your the subs on. So that's our product. So how do we make this product and exciting so
Yeah.
people want to buy it? And that's probably the missing piece. Maybe they need to go to Google, because everyone goes to Google if they want to know something. So maybe
Yeah.
take the game to Google and go, all right, how do we bring people to the game? So maybe the lesson sits there.
I think that Prem Sevens idea earlier was that obviously they've already trialled. I think that's the short form T20 blast or something that we can, because Spain have obviously, they're really pushing with their sevens circuit, and their men's TikTok I think's just reached 100,000 views or so, 100,000 followers on their TikTok, and it's been categorized as a thirst trap because most of the blokes are on there, shirts off. They're in incredible nick. So fair play to them. Coming from a prop that looks like a melted wheelie bin, I could only ever imagine to be a rig like that. But they've people have looked into the amount of followers they've got, and most of them, I think, 75% of that 100,000 followers have come from women.
Yeah.
And obviously, them running around with their tops off in the change room, all that sort of stuff. They're usually the highest views and the highest likes.
Yeah.
I know, and obviously the old adage of sex sells. Do you think we're also? I think Spain have probably opened the door on that. Do you think that behind the scenes stuff is accessible enough? I know a lot of the clubs at social media aspects and stuff, and you see obviously Northampton Saints at the weekend in there singing the song, banging the shoes, that sort of. Do you think that behind the scenes is as much as it should be, and as accessible in short form for the attention, as you said, the Gen Zers with the easy access, short form, low attention span, in out, job done?
Yeah, we're not doing enough of that. We gotta take the people to the sort of pressure cooker. They gotta get
Yeah,
a feeling for. I love that interview the other day with Johnny May on TNT Sport as he was going into into the changing room, before they come out to the warm up, and he said to the presenter, he said, "This is the worst time. This is the time he absolutely hates. This space, this next 20 minutes or so. This is the time he absolutely hates.
yeah,
He feels sick in his stomach. We don't see that. So,
no,
if he didn't say that, we'd have never known. Sometimes as a performance coach, you're standing there in the middle before game. The nerves is going, everything is going. Loads of different things goes through your head. So imagine
the
what the
players are doing.
guys, what the guys might be feeling, and and then you sometimes wonder why they make certain decisions. But it's easy from the from your sofa. But if
Yeah,
we understand, I think the BT guys or TNT now, I think Oogs and those boys are trying to make it more exciting at moments. But then I'm not a football guy. Um,
no,
I'm not a big football guy, but I watched the pre-game analysis the other day, and bam, I was sitting up and I going, geez, look at just their animation and the way they talk about it, and do you see what I mean? So
yeah,
there's definitely people are craving. I want to know uh, what some coaches are thinking.
yeah,
That would be pretty cool. I want to know what the best players are going through. I've got that access, like I said, with Carl Sinclair at the moment. I know exactly how he feels, how he thinks, how he defines it. But imagine we can give that to the public. You think about Owen Farrell's situation
yeah,
just during the World Cup, probably England's best ever player. arguably we can say that. But the way we treated the guy, you know,
Yeah.
um, it, that's not cool. That's not gonna make our game go forward and grow because he doesn't deserve that. But
I
imagine we,
think I think some people used him as an easy target as well because he's not accessible in the media, because he's not that sort of guy. He's not. He wants to live his life. He just goes about it, does his job, does his rugby, loves his rugby, but he's not a media guy. And I think people then think, oh well, he's too up his own arse. He doesn't want to talk to the general public, which is not the sort. That's just not what you get the vibe. Some people get the vibe from Owen. He's just a quiet guy, and he just does his stuff, and he's in where he is. But some people then use that as an easy target for certain people because they're not accessible.
yeah. But imagine we could go tap into his brain, the way
Yeah,
he sees the game, the way he does.
that's very Elon Musk there, Warren. No, that's Neuralinks. I think there's a whole different kettle of game there if we get involved in that.
Just like there's stuff there, the way he prepares. I know Jim Hamilton is doing some good stuff with Rugby Pass, but then that's on Rugby Pass. It's an app people need to download. It just becomes very complicated. You got to sign in. We got to just make it. We got to find a simple, easy route. Bam, people can stick it on. I love the South African channel. If you got that channel, you got Rugby 24/7.
Yeah,
Same in New Zealand, it's Rugby 24/7 obviously, but then there's other elements to that. But the guy I used to love having conversations with, Cecil Africa, one of the best playmakers that we probably had in the sevens game. Just his brain is like a computer, you
yeah,
know. Having for me as a young coach, really understanding how he sees it, how he feels out there, how he would strategize certain plays, etc. And you go, wow, this is pretty cool. But I just thinking, as it's hot in my head now, I coached a girl, young, Ilona Mars. she's probably one of the best female sevens players around at the moment. But
yeah,
she blew up on TikTok. She's got millions, I think 1.2, 1.3 million followers on TikTok. So she's probably a big advocate for female performance and body image. And
yeah,
she talks a lot of cool stuff on there that sort of closed this narrative on female athletes looking a certain way.
yeah.
But the world's our oyster. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to answer it.
Exactly that. It's I know you said obviously you're not a big football fan, but they've done it on like Arsenal, they've done the Tottenham, they've gone behind the scenes and they've had cameras in and stuff and seen when players have been dropped and contracts not renewed and stuff like that. And I don't think that door's been open enough in rugby. Do you think something like that might be able to be an easy marketable for play like the Australian cricket team did it around the Ashes? They've done a few series. Rising Sun's done to an extent, but that's on an international level. Do you think seeing inside the clubs at a Prem level might open the door, and then you go and have one in America? You'd have one of the MLR teams, or you'd have one of the Super Rugby teams, or something like that, just to try and create a whole series around that. I know there was talks of it happening. I just don't think it's moved forward as much within rugby that makes that accessible for people to understand the intricacies that aren't part of the game. They'd be able to chuck that on. It'd be a 6-part series, 7-part, whatever, and they'll be able to see the inner workings, which might 1 out of every 10 people or 1 out of every 20 people might then think, actually, I really like the look of that, and then buy into it a little bit more.
Yeah,
Do you think that sort of content would be ideal to expose the game inside out, as you said?
yeah, no, it will be, but and then we've just gotta find the right sort of stories to tell in those stuff. We look at the Premiership one they had. It was all right, but it was pretty bland and basic. So.
So
Um,
they've probably missed the boat. The Northampton story is probably, or the Bath story was probably the one they could have jumped around because, well, Bath were pretty much bottom, 18 months ago, and now they just lost in a Prem final. Like, where are they going to be next year? If they'd got the cameras in and said, "Well, hold on, relegations is off the table. Let's go." Why don't they go to Newcastle? Let's say, sod it, right? They basically should have been relegated this season. Let's go and watch their return, like Phoenix from the Flames or whatever. 2 years' time, they might win a European Cup. But you never know. No, it's not going to happen. But like that sort of story would get people to buy in. It was the same as when the class of '92, all the Man United players went and bought Salford, and they managed to take them from like League 10 or whatever it was, Ben, to now they're playing in League 2. It's fourth division of English football. Like, those sort of stories aren't shown within the game, but those do happen, like within rugby. But we just don't show it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we've got we got access to so much knowledge and content and stuff that you can share. I was thinking about Beno Urbano. Just yesterday, I've coached his brother for a long time. So you go, right, how's he feeling today? What's going through his head? How's he going to bounce back from this situation? What type of support is he getting? I'm 100% sure that they'll give him a lot of care and guidance and support, no doubt, because you can just see how the boys rallied around him at the weekend, and obviously having one of the best mindset coaches. I know Katie Warrener worked with him for a while. Peter Kruger's with him now, so he's got some good people there anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So man, that'd be cool stuff. That'd definitely be cool stuff.
Warren, I know you've not got too much longer, mate. So, what has been your greatest success as a coach?
It's a tough question. This
because I'm sure there's loads of little, but there's got to be one that stands out. You think actually, I've say Brazil. You've for the 4 years they've gone from nothing to this. There's got to be one that stands out.
It's the way I think about it nowadays. In the beginning, it was about winning titles and winning World Series events and winning all these medals and stuff. And you always measured success on that because, again, as we said, the narrative that's created in our game is like, if you win, you success and you're a pretty good coach,
Yeah.
So as a young coach, you fall into that trap. For me now, it's I measure success based on what these people are achieving that I've coached so far. The small part I've played in their journey. So the guys who's like I said, who's now been selected to play international rugby. So from a performance standpoint, there, both men and women, you go right that I've had a small part here, and it's real good success. But then the other parts to it is all these guys who didn't make it along the way. I was in a bakery with my daughter the other day, and a guy ran over to me, and he sort of run over into the bakery. It's like, are you Warren Abrams? I'm going, yeah. It's like, you used to coach me when I was 13 years old. I was in the academy at Harlequins, and now he's a journalist. He was just in Bristol, doing some work here. He had to go and interview somewhere. And I go, geez, this is, for me, that is success stories. He didn't cross the road when he saw me, to go and walk.
That's top draw. That
for me, that's the stuff that excites me now when I back in South Africa. What I found in South Africa and seeing all these young people coming from nothing in disadvantaged areas, and we put them in. They've got scholarships in some of the top schools in South Africa. Again, that's a measure of success for me. Probably the most exciting one for me was I last year I coached. I got asked to come and help Bristol University, but the guys who made the phone call for me to come and help them with the sevens was 4 guys that I coached from 13 to 18 in academy rugby.
Yeah.
reached out and go, look, Warren, can you come and help us with our sevens program? And I'm like,
Quality.
wow, geez, and for me, that's those type of stories. That's what I measure um, as success at the moment, because that is me living truly to what I want to achieve and my mission as a coach. So yeah, the I always say the other accolades and stuff, they're amazing, but they sometimes just remind people of your location.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
Seeing
So
the actual physical effect of what you've done on people is the biggest medal you could probably ever have as well. Because if you've changed the way somebody thinks or processes their day to day and impacts upon their life, completely agree, mate. I think that's the biggest success as a coach as you can, because I coach kids out here as well, and just uh, you just see the difference how they've grown within the year and stuff. And then if you said you managed to see kids through their academy as well, you must see how much couple of little things, like as you say, you impact them, and then they carry that on. And then if they're willing to run across the road to chase you into a bakery or whatever, that you know that you've made an impact and hopefully sort of put them on a right path.
100%. And yeah, I'm jealous of you coaching out there in the sunshine, mate.
It's actually started raining today, but it's clear in the air. It's been about 30 odd degrees out of here the last few days, so it's a been a little bit warm. So we're due a thunderstorm, but yeah, it's probably the game's not as well supported as it should be out here. I think it's on that precipice of, if they can actually finally get into the World Cup, I think we should see the boom. But yeah, beats being stood down in Gosport on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, cool. Someone asked me the other day on a podcast with somewhere. It's like, if you can coach any, or if you can join a project, a coaching project now, which coaching project would I do? And I said, right, I would jump in with the Spanish woman, because
Yeah.
that is a project that you can take to a completely new level. Because
So we're actually going to see them, the 15s play. They're playing down at La Villa on Saturday against Canada, and yeah, they're an absolute force to be reckoned with. And as you say, if you get that advertising and marketing right, that could really take off. So it's a really exciting sort of space out here as well, and some really good teams, good way it's set up where it is. But it's probably about the fourth or fifth sport that over here at the minute. So that's the hardest bit that people have got to try and break through over here. So it'd be fun.
yeah,
So it's a nice way to look forward at least. So
definitely.
Warren, I know you've got to get off to sort Kyle Sinclair's hands out before he goes to France, so to make sure they know what he's got. But what a pleasure it has been, Warren. Thank you so much. As I said earlier on before we started this, maybe we can get you and Rusty back on and have a sort of a mind off of coaching techniques and how the games move forward at some point in the future.
No, Carl, thank you. Firstly, thank you very much. Like I said right at the top, for having me. I'm always privileged when these things come around, and yeah, 100% jumping in what Russ did. We will no doubt be a crazy conversation, and
I think that'll be a blinder, yeah. So I'll have to start working on Rusty around that. So
especially having both of us in the same conversation, we can
we'd have to do like a super extended version of the pod. You'd have to cancel your diary for the day.
go multiple places. But now look, it's appreciate the invite. Hope something lands on someone, and then yeah, if people want to get hold of me, Rugby Creative on Instagram, on all the social stuff. Yeah, I'm always willing to answer some questions there. Yeah.
Yeah, quality. When the pod goes out, we'll get that shared. But thank you, Warren. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much, mate. Enjoyed
Cheers,
it.
mate.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, that brings this pod to an end. If you made it this far, I just want to take a moment to thank you for listening right through and express my gratitude for following yet another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. So in today's episode, we caught up with the legend that is Warren Abrahams. The man has done untold amounts within the game. debunked the myth that he would pretty much become a seven specialist, and that seems to be a common buzzword within the game. If you enjoy sevens and you specialise in that, you seem to be tarnished with that. Warren is a rugby coach with a depth of knowledge that just helps everyone that he gets the opportunity to meet. Absolute pleasure to have him on. Be really great for him and Rusty to jump on together. I think that'll be an extra long episode, but 100% worth it to tap into both of their knowledge. And as Warren said, not all success can be judged just off medals. It can also be judged off people crossing the road to say thank you so much, or calling you up and saying what you've done made a real difference. Can you come and help us again? Next episode, we have managed to get the newly appointed director of rugby on from Navy Rugby. So Tom Blackburn is coming on, talks about how he has stepped into the role, the ambitions of where that's going, how they want to close the gap further with the Army, and obviously the challenge that's going to be in place to close that quite a wide gap with the Army women's game. However, top bloke, really nice to catch up with him, and a nice little door opening to services rugby as well. And hopefully we can potentially work round the services to understand their challenges as well. So one for opening up a little lead for future pods. But once again, a huge thank you to you all for joining us, and thank you and goodbye.